alliance, even as pressure mounts from other leaders, including President Kenyatta, to work with the ODM leader to form a formidable team that will face Ruto in next year's polls. We'll get to discuss about the formation of coalitions, because some seem to have metamorphosized from Pentagon to CORD to NASA, and now we have One Kenya Alliance. We'll take a look at the efficiency, the efficacy, if others call it that way. But that's one of the major stories covered in today's paper. Uhuru's plan to counter the hustler nation on page 5. COVID fears as Form 1s are set to report this week. On page 16, the latest from the education sector, even as the world news is covered in the paper as well. Uganda gets COVID jabs from China. That's the latest on the Standard, at least part of it. Over to the Daily Nation, the front page. It's the question, ultimate kingmaker. The fresh-packed ODM pulled out of National Super Alliance amid talks with Jubilee to form a new coalition. So it's all to do with the political game in the country right now. And they're taking a look at the third force, One Kenya Alliance. And it has been billed as a third force in 2022 after Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga. And these particular leaders, Musalia, Kalonzo, Moses Wetangula and Gideon Moi, could also make up the swing vote. So the stakes are high, and they're definitely trying to raise the stakes as we get closer to the elections. We'll get to discuss this in totality, even as we highlight how Raila mentioned he's open to new alliances, one of the main stories we covered just yesterday. But before we do that, allow me to introduce my panelist so far, Arthur Odera, former Teso North Member of Parliament. Thank you for your time. It's great to see you. It's been a while. Good morning.
Good morning, Jesse. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Are you ecstatic about Omanyala?
Very delighted about Omanyala. You know, Omanyala is a Teso name that spells hope, and something that germinates fresh, good, and nutritious.
Okay.
So we are very proud of him as Kenyans. And, you know, he's entering into territory that's not traditional Kenyan territory. Kenyans are known for long distance, but here we are having a young man who bears promise in the short distances, and we wish him all the best as he goes ahead to exploit his talent.
Exactly, a young man, barely 25 years of age, but so many people are focused on the part that he beat one of his main idols, as he mentioned, Blake from Jamaica.
The Beast. I mean, the Beast has been a training partner and a competitor for the legendary Usain Bolt. He is also a compatriot of Usain Bolt. And if you remember the record-breaking Jamaican 4x1 relay team, the Beast was the second biggest contributor to that victory. He ran round the bend and delivered the baton to the guy who finally gave it to Usain Bolt, and they cracked up the world. So the Beast is no mean competitor. But I think, you know, probably like in the sprints, age matters quite a big deal.
Quite so.
And it reaches a point where you have to give way to the youngsters, because there is always talent coming through the ranks, and there's always talent teaming to burst into the international stage. And you would be happy for the likes of Ferdinand Omanyala that he's got his shot. Remember, there's a point at which he was almost not going to the Olympics. So we're very happy for him. We are very proud that he has done what he has done for Kenya, putting us on the map. It's the first time in the history of Kenya that a Kenyan has gotten into the semi-finals of an Olympics sprint.
Okay.
So we wish him well.
And we wish him all the best,
Absolutely.
even as he goes into the future. Though it was a night of many unusuals. The Italians definitely did take that particular medal, I must tell you. I had my money on Canada, but that's the nature of the sport.
That's great for the sport, isn't it?
Quite
that,
so.
you know, somebody busts from nowhere and wins a race. It's good. I mean, that's been traditionally Jamaican and American territory. So to see an Italian and De Grasse, you sort of feel for him. He's done bronze and silver and bronze and silver. And like you said, one would have been hoping that this time he gets gold and then, you know, he might fade into retirement having gotten gold. But, you know, as fate would have it. But we are happy for the Kenyans in the 800 that they are probably their biggest competitor, Amos of Botswana, is out of the race. Sad for him, but happy for Kenyans. Maybe we have a better chance of getting a 1-2
All's well that ends well. Let's monitor what transpires in Tokyo. Of course, our team is on the ground and will definitely keep you informed, even on our sister station, KTN Home. But let's start with politics, Arthur. After we highlight this particular story, where the ODM leader, Raila Odinga, has given the clearest indication yet that he's ready to work with the One Kenya Alliance. The former Prime Minister says the party will hold a delegates conference in Nyanza this week, the first such planned meeting for all regions in the country to seek delegates' approval for the party to engage other political outfits. Raila Odinga says ODM will be ready for talks with One Kenya Alliance and any other political outfit after the final delegates conference to be held in Nairobi. Rita Tinina with this report.
For political partners who have been together for close to 10 years, first under CORD and later under NASA, coalition partners are agreed on one thing.
NASA is the past. NASA is history.
NASA ilifanya kazi yake ni ikakwisha. Hiyo haimaanishi kwamba hatuwezi kuungana tena.
ODM, ANC, Wiper, Ford Kenya and CCM have left the coalition in what critics see as a rather smooth divorce. Already, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka and Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula have been engaging with KANU chairman Gideon Moi under the One Kenya Alliance. And now Raila, who was in Cheptulu in Vihiga County, has hinted at the possibility of working with the One Kenya Alliance.
Tutakuwa tayari kuongea na OKA. Sawa sawa.
But for ODM to engage other political outfits, delegates will have to give the go-ahead.
Lakini haya mazungumzo yataanza wiki hii ambayo inakuja.
The party will hold its first delegates conference in Nyanza on Friday. Kakamega will play host to the delegates from Western on Saturday before delegates from the coast, eastern and northeastern regions have their say.
Bonde la ufa. Alafu mlima. Walisema ya kwamba Raila hawezi kupanda milima. Sema nimepata punda mzuri zaidi ambaye ataweza kupanda milima.
Though the dates are yet to be confirmed, Nairobi will hold the final delegates conference as the party gears up for new alliances.
Tukishafanya haya yote tutakuwa tayari kuongea na mtu yoyote.
With the NASA breakup, the search for strategic coalitions ahead of the 2022 elections could see former coalition partners back together again, a possibility that cannot be ruled out just yet. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
So you can't rule out any possible formation right now, Arthur Odera. Raila hinting that there is a possibility of working together with the former NASA principals, now One Kenya Alliance principals, come 2022. Well, what say you? Political genius?
No, I think the common sense, if you ask me, common sense is coming to the fore. Remember that this for me is a demonstration that the hardline positions are softening. We've come from 1 month ago or so where at least Kalonzo Musyoka and Musalia Mudavadi were saying no way, we can't work with him, let him do his thing, we do ours. To now a position where Kalonzo is saying I am inviting Raila to be my running mate. Bottom line, we want to work together. And Musalia Mudavadi said, yes, we can work together, but what happens to the deficit of trust? So essentially, I think, and now Raila coming out and saying, you know, NASA is finished, but I've always said it's not NASA, it's the players. The players have moved out of NASA, which was seen in some point to be an unequal arrangement that, in the view of many, favored ODM and left too many ends untied. And I think that if they go into a new alliance, they will all be looking forward to something that's more inclusive, something that's more balanced, and something that is truly mutually beneficial. And I suppose for ANC, Ford Kenya, and Wiper, that's probably what they would be pushing for if they were to enter into a new alliance with ODM. Okay. And you see, it puts paid to the worries of those who tend to support this gentleman, these four gentlemen, that they are willing to work together. And my hunch is that there are a lot of discussions going on behind the scenes. What we are hearing in the podium is just a culmination of a lot of footwork that is going on behind the scenes, discussions. At this point in time, you would get the feeling that there is already an agreement in principle that let's work together. However, let's work on the details of it. Let us have something to present to our supporters. But I guess that a lot of the supporters of this gentleman would be doing their mathematics rather than getting excited about prospects. Because the real prospects will come out of the mathematics in terms of, how they get the votes, whether there's a realistic hope of being elected. And I suppose if one or more of them were to decide that they'll go their own way, they would be weighed back by the prospect of, even if you're a regional kingpin or an ethnic kingpin, the fact of your people turning out passionately to vote for you will depend a lot on whether there is realistic hope that you will actually make it for president. Because lessons have been learned. I mean, since the first multi-party election, Kenyans are more enlightened now with the benefit of social media and a lot of communication, and democracy is thriving. People can receive information in many different ways today. And therefore, we are wiser. And the ordinary Kenyan is much better placed to do their mathematics, crunch the numbers and say, okay, Mr. X, you're telling us that you are from our community, you want our votes, you want to be president. Show us how you're going to become president. Okay. Let us see hope in it. Yeah. Then we can invest our time and energy in it. Otherwise than that, we would say to you, listen, you'd rather take position 2 or 3 or 4, but at least have something rather than stay out in the cold just for purposes of presenting yourself for president. And I think, this gentleman, because their utterances certainly indicate that they are probably seeing mathematically what almost everybody else is seeing, that their only hope of clinching the presidency is working together. And if they carry on like that, whatever arrangement they come up with, they surely will be a formidable force, if you ask me.
So it's all to do with unite or perish.
Exactly.
Okay, but it begs the question, there's so many utterances being mentioned, being said rather. One of them from Musalia Mudavadi on page 4 of the Standard. He's quoted saying the mistrust between ODM leader Raila Odinga and his former NASA allies is too wide and could be difficult to bridge. So are they still raising their stakes in such a case? Because they're sort of downplaying the dispute over the sharing of money given to ODM from the political parties fund, arguing that the demise of NASA was over the non-fulfillment of principles and not just dispute over sharing of funds. Your take?
Well, if you want to solve a problem, first of all, you diagnose it. You recognize the problem. You pinpoint where it's coming from. You decide which is the symptom and which is the cause of the problem, and then you solve it. If the problem is mistrust, surely it must manifest itself some way or other. And I suppose most of that talk is a lot about the sharing of positions in parliament and the sharing of the money that's coming from the political parties fund. And clearly, you can see, in relation to the political parties fund, a step has been taken. ODM made a decision that they're going to share some of the money with their partners, the NASA partners. That is a step forward. The feeling is that it's not enough, given that they've been receiving the money since 2017. It's not enough that's being shared, but certainly it is something. And while you may not go back, ODM may not be able to go back and retrieve monies they've already spent to share them with their coalition partners, they are saying that we are willing to share what we have now, what we've recently received. And I suppose that's a beginning that's going to take them away from the conversation of mistrust to a conversation of going forward, what is a better way to work. And to work in a better way, they will need better agreements, they will need better negotiations, they will need better relations between themselves as a commitment to something that they jointly believe in. And I've always thought that these 4 gentlemen are natural partners politically. They have worked together before, they have a history of trying to achieve something, and they were a formidable force both in 2013 and 2017.
Yeah, and I think that begs the question, what difference does it make? Is it just a case of changing the political outfit and the individuals sort of remain the same? Because as I mentioned earlier, we've had Pentagon, some of these individuals formed it, later on COD evolved, NASA also came along, and now we have One Kenya Alliance. What's the wild card here?
Well, the big thing that they are seeing, and based on their utterances, and you would see the actions over the last few weeks of especially Musalia Mudavadi and Raila Odinga, is that they are not anymore ranged against the Mount Kenya group. That it is not them versus Uhuru Kenyatta or them versus Mwai Kibaki previously, where Mount Kenya was solidly behind their man, if you like, and them seeming to go against that group. This is a situation whereby each of them is hoping to be able, using their own influence, their own network, to court Mount Kenya and hopefully get them on board. Because their realization is that the Deputy President has gone ahead and made inroads into Mount Kenya, seems to have their hearts and minds at the moment, and that is going to be a serious battleground, because I doubt, maybe they will, but I doubt that this time round Mount Kenya will have a formidable candidate who the whole region will rally around, like they rallied against Kibaki and rallied against Uhuru Kenyatta. It's unlikely that there will be such a candidate to Mount Kenya. So Mount Kenya is up for the taking, and therefore they feel that in competition against the Deputy President, if they manage to hive off a big chunk of the Mount Kenya vote, they have a better chance. Again, remember that in 2013, Musalia went his own way, and in 2017, he came along with this other gentleman. The other thing that may be different but is less talked about is the formidable influence that many, not all, but many of the outgoing governors will wield. And I think that part of, this is my hunch, that part of the discomfort that Musalia Mudavadi might have with working with Raila is the fact that Raila has embraced Oparanya and has him very close to him. Oparanya is an influential figure in Kakamega County. Certainly he is well respected. He's a man with a good track record. Among the governors, you would range him perhaps in the top 5 governors who have delivered for their people. And as a person, he wields influence. People will want to listen to what he says regarding the presidential vote in 2022. And he's already deeply in the Raila camp. And Musalia might be thinking, do they really need me? And if they do, what is my role in that arrangement now that Oparanya is already deep in it? And there will be such discomforts. And, you know, again, the battle for the youth vote is the third factor, that this time round, the Deputy President, William Ruto, seems to be ahead on that front. His kind of slogans, the kind of policies he professes are policies that generally excite the youth. And therefore, it's going to be a major, major battleground for the, whatever alliance it will be called, but let's say the ODM and the OKA alliance. And remember, if you want to see the forces at play, Senator Gideon Moi, at some point within the last 3 weeks, was seen in some quarters to be walking away from the One Kenya Alliance. And I think the message was, you guys, unity as One Kenya Alliance is great as a starting point, not as a push towards us going it alone to 2022, but as a starting point for rallying us together. It's great. However, now we are at a point at which we've come together. Let us bring in Raila Odinga. And I think that's the message, because he has kept touch with Raila Odinga. They've met, they've talked. And One Kenya Alliance, on the other hand, when Senator Gideon Moi seemed to be looking like he's walking away, I think there's an awakening. And that probably is symptomatic of the forces behind the scenes that are forcing these guys to come together and say, listen, gentlemen, your only hope is together.
There's power in numbers, quote unquote. But I mean, it's a battle for the youth. I don't know if you've listened to Mbogi Genje, as Raila Odinga has apparently. But that's on the side. Let's talk about the ideologies, what these men stand for, the One Kenya Alliance principles, because it's come into sharp contrast as well. We well know of Raila Odinga what he stands for, but the other gentlemen, what say you about that?
Looking at those three gentlemen, I think you would rather talk about what each one of them brings to the table in terms of skills, in terms of experience, in terms of personality, their trust capital, and so on. Let's start with, shall we say, perhaps the senior most politically of them, Kalonzo Musyoka.
Okay.
He's a diplomat. He's a proven diplomat who has served Kenya in many different diplomatic capacities without necessarily having been an ambassador. But he is somebody who is known to have diplomatic skills, especially peace building. He is now the special envoy to Sudan. He's been special envoy to different places. Remember the shuttle diplomacy that was deployed against the ICC. He was at the forefront of that as well. I think that was when he was vice president to Mzee Kibaki. So he brings diplomatic skills. He brings experience of government in the Moi era, in the Kibaki era, into this city. And he brings what, in my view, has been the ability to galvanize Ukambani. Whether he'll be able to do that 100% anymore or not is neither here nor there. But I think that because people mostly vote on hope, and they thrive on hope, if Kalonzo Musyoka gives the Ukambani nation hope that they will be in the next government and is their best bet, they will follow him. Musalia Mudavadi, remember, was the finance minister during some of the darkest periods in the Kenyan financial circles. And when inflation had hit 86% or thereabout, he was the finance minister and he was able to guide the ship out of the murky waters onto safe shore. So he is a proven figure. He's been Minister for Transport. He has been Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Local Government. But probably his best skills are on the economic front. Can he manage the economy? If, for example, just for purposes of argument, if you got a president, whoever it will be, and Musalia is on that side of the coalition, and he was given the task to be Treasury Secretary and say, guide this nation out of this cash crunch that we have, out of the inflationary pressures that we have, out of the lack of money in people's pockets, come up with policies that aid, he probably would be able to do that. And Wetangula is a foremost diplomat, a seasoned political operator. He is the kind of guy who, given the capacity and the space, he is able to mobilize deeply. He understands government. He's been a minister holding different portfolios in government. And therefore, one thing I would say then, summing it up, is these are guys who are old hands at government. They know how government works. And if they decide that they're going to have the right policies, they're experienced enough to guide this nation out of the troubles that we have now, depending on who the president is. Raila Odinga, of course, is a proven political animal. He has the charm. He has the political network across Kenya. He has the ability to listen. He's a legendary guy when it comes to his listening skills. And he is a man who Kenyans can identify with in terms of liberating this country. The second liberation, the third liberation are all attributed to him, the sacrifices he has made as an individual. And it is probably easy for many Kenyans to think this is a trusted set of hands that can guide this nation, through what we are going through now and take us into the future. One would then argue that given their experience and they've all served in previous regimes, do they have a clear view of the future or do they represent the past? And then you would argue that if they need to be seen to be successful, they need to thrust the youth to the front line. They need to bring enough youthful people who represent the future, who see the future for what it will be, and bring them and empower them and bring them into the heart of whatever it is they see as their government.
And I think that begs the question. You equally can't wish away Deputy President William Ruto, and I'm sure you've seen the bottom-up approach and how some of his lieutenants have struggled breaking it down. But Without regard, it definitely is a conversation right now that we have. What say you about the bottom-up approach? Ruto just yesterday defended it, saying it's aimed at empowering the weak in society. Those who are opposed to the economic model are not well versed with it and should stop trivializing it. We've seen a lot of trivializing, of course, bottles, bottom-up and all that. What say you? Break it down for us, Arthur, from where you see it. Is it just theory, or it can actually get practical?
One might argue that the Hustler Nation bottom-up approach, Wilbaronomics, illustrates to us at this point in time the power of slogans. That slogans can carry people and capture their emotions and push them to a level where people believe in something and fight for something even before they understand it fully.
Okay.
Because if those close to the Deputy President do not understand it and cannot explain it, that tells you that probably the idea has not crystallized enough to be brought to a level where it becomes policy or becomes a philosophy that can be expounded, explained, and implemented. Nonetheless, for me, bottom-up essentially means economic policies and strategies that seek to empower, especially economically, the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And there is an example of what happened in Afghanistan. Dr. Yunus got a Nobel Prize for what he did in Afghanistan. And I think that is the concept that dovetails into what we call microfinance, essentially getting people who ordinarily don't have the capital, they don't have collateral to place for them to get loans, and enable them to get capital to do what they need to do. And that had a big impact in that economy. The other example, of course, is India. The cottage industries in India are industries where even somebody who has 2 cows or 3 can start making cheese, for example, or making yogurt or something like that at the bottom, and begin adding value to a primary product and grow on the back of that. Those are just examples. Okay. And then you then would say, what are the problems that beset the lowest of the low in society? People who are willing to work hard especially, but don't have the capital, don't have the knowledge. Those are the key things that weigh down people, or don't have the market. Giving them access to market, giving them access to capital, and giving them access to knowledge would be very, very important things to do if you want to raise people from the bottom up. Okay. Of course, there are challenges with that. It's a change of minds. It's a whole paradigm shift. If you want to have a bottom-up economic model, it's a huge paradigm shift. It needs a high level of commitment. It will go against the politics of the day, I can assure you. But if there is commitment, it can be done. Okay. However, there's been a lot of memes and a lot of jokes about the inability of the people around the Deputy President to explain what bottom-up is. Of course, there's also been an attempt to rubbish the whole concept, and some words that some of them are fairly insulting and rather obscene have been used to just try and rubbish it. However, if you were to take the Kenyan economy today, Jesse, and have a realistic audit of what might be regarded as bottom-up, for me, devolution is a bottom-up concept. Okay. Youth Enterprise Development Fund is a bottom-up concept. Women Enterprise Fund is a bottom. I mean, their success or lack of it is a different matter, but it is an attempt to give power, economic power, to people at the grassroots level. Okay. If used well, if applied well, and if applied based on the objective that they started off with, those are examples of bottom-up policies that essentially should spur the economy at the grassroots level, empower the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and enable the economy to grow. Because and we know for a fact that the people at the bottom of the pyramid are the greatest number of people. Quite so. What will happen if you empower them? You will have them empowered economically. More children will go to school. More people will have food. More people will have financial security for their middle and old age. And number 2, which is fundamentally important, there will be a lot more taxpayers contribution to the national purse, and therefore there will be no need to tax the ones who are taxed some more, because there will be more contributors to the national purse.
Well, this conversation is only set to get heated as we get closer and closer to 2022. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll evaluate what the Jubilee Reloaded, quote unquote, have in store in terms of countering the UDA's bottom-up economic model. It's highlighted on page 5 of the Standard, so make sure you stay with us. We'll be back after this particular break.